I think when you're going towards a reasoning that is supposed to be more, I would say, balanced based on research that I've seen, ChatGPT tends to give you a more balanced, neutral standpoint, whereas you may not get the same response from other AIs. So again, other considerations besides just its knowledge capabilities are also what the framework, what is it willing to answer objectively, and where does it kind of veer a little bit based on the creator's framework.
Is it possible to harness the power of AI and gain a competitive advantage over your competitors? Are you embracing AI? Are you running away from AI? Especially those of you who are small business owners. Are you running away, running to the hills, or are you embracing AI? Today, I have the great privilege of having with us Mr. Dr. Rawson, joining us all the way from Nevada, Henderson, Nevada. He has been a thought leader in business for a long time, and he's made some predictions about AI that nobody saw coming. And we'll be hearing from him today. And also, we have the privilege of having with us Mr. Medina, goes by Marlon, out of Las Vegas, and he has grown with AI almost like from day one. He has embraced it, he has used it in running his business, and he's brought some insight for us. So please don't go away. Grab a cup of coffee, come closer to this virtual fireside because you're about to drink from two very insightful gentlemen. Gentlemen, good morning, welcome. I am in Dallas. Where are you today?
Well, I'm in Henderson, in my office, my home. Yeah.
I'm the same. I'm probably about 10, 12 miles away from DR, but I'm still here at home in my home office.
Great. So you're also in Henderson, not Las Vegas. Maybe I misquoted.
No, I am in Vegas, but it's not too big of a distance. So it's, Vegas isn't quite the Big Apple like New York. It's a little smaller.
Yes, let me claim my roots to Nevada. Like you, I see myself pretty much like a Nevadan. Why? Because I went to school in Reno, and Nevada is the only state in America where I came and lived the longest. And so whatever I do, I always give credit to Nevada. So it's good to meet fellow members of the battle-born state. Today, the markets are tumbling like crazy since yesterday for many, many reasons. And because we're talking about future-proofing your business, Marlon, I want to start with you. Is it possible to leverage AI to predict where the markets are going to be tomorrow?
Well, I don't know about markets, but, not being a financial expert, but I think to leverage it for your own personal benefit and running your personal market, your ROI, absolutely. And I think I'm a testament of that, in the same sense where we are hearing, rumors of destruction when it comes to the markets and things of that nature. I also heard the same rumors of destruction when COVID hit. And I was told that, hey, what are we going to do for a living? Things are going to be a mess. And I buckled down and I doubled down on marketing. And I doubled down on AI. And I said, you know what? This is going to be that pivotal moment where business owners that owned mom and pop shops that were brick and mortar that previously just relied on their own sheer, grit and their own sheer foot traffic, they couldn't do that anymore. They had to think outside the box. And so what did it take? It took either them figuring out the hard way that, you know what, my business didn't do it in time. And that was the saddest thing, as someone that was born and raised in Vegas, to see these beautiful places, that have grown so much, made so much revenue, all of a sudden shuttered, gone forever, and that was a pivotal moment for me to say, hey, I got to activate and I got to activate fast. And so in these down periods, these times of uncertainty, that has been one of the strongest moments for me and my agency as a whole, because we use those to get that information out that is so valuable for people. It's literally the difference between their business's life or death. And I think we're in that similar moment now.
Wow. Okay. So when we're in a downturn, there are opportunities there. That's what you're saying. And I know I did not mention the name of your business, but please, can you just quickly drop the name of your business? Then we'll come back. We'll come back to that.
Of course, yes. So it's Golden Medina Services, as GMS for short, and so it's your media and marketing home. That this is what my wife and I have started since 2017. We incorporated, and it's made a lot of face changes because AI makes a lot of face changes, and we're just playing catch up, right? That's what happens when you're using such a powerful instrument.
Yeah.
You have to play catch up with it.
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir. But talking about catch up, somebody who has been there, done it all over and over, and always adapting, always changing, always transforming, and remaining relevant. I know Darwin said something like, it's not the brightest of species, it's not the strongest of species that will survive. It is the most adaptable. And like I mentioned, Mr. D.R. Rawson is with us today. You have founded more than 30 businesses.
Correct.
And you're restless and tireless. And you just founded another business recently. But I want you to maybe first of all talk about the power of adaptation as a critical human necessity for survival. We're not even talking about AI yet. Just why is it so important that we should always be adaptable and always looking at how to ride a wave or how to ride out of the wave and survive?
When I was probably, let's say I married my wife when I was 58. So when I was about 56, 57 years old, my future father-in-law was out working in my wife's home in her yard. And I said to him, can I ask you a question? Now, he was exactly my age at that time, 78. And he said, sure, whatever. And I said, what do you think the future to long life is? What do you think the key is? He said, oh, I know exactly what it is. I said, what's that? He said, keep moving. What you're doing, keep moving. Keep your body moving, keep your mind moving, keep your thoughts going forward and not living in the past. He said, keep moving. Well, the man died at 91 years old. So he kept moving for quite a while. Me personally, I've already set my death at in 22 years, I'll die. I'll be 101 day.
Oh my goodness. That's precise.
If you can't get it done in 100 years, come on, really? You're given so much time. It's like, for me, corporate meetings should be 1 hour. I've never had a company meeting that wasn't just 1 hour, because the mind can only absorb what the bottom can endure.
Yes.
So I have meetings that last 1 hour.
Yes.
And if you can't get it done in an hour, then you should have rethought the meeting to begin with, or you should maybe rethink the way you're leading. So that's kind of the way I work. But I've seen a lot of changes over the years, and a lot of things have happened. And it's not so much being adaptable for me. It's having the ability to recognize that even in a market like this, where we've been down in 2 days, 2,400 points, is there an opportunity there, or is it just all doom and gloom, as Marlon was saying? People thinking, oh my God, COVID, and now it's all destroyed and everything's gone, and I don't have the money that I had. I was a multimillionaire yesterday, and today I'm not, and all that kind of stuff. Well, I've been there, done that with all that stuff. And it happens. It just happens. That's the way it is. That's when you're in business, that's what you take. In my particular case, in the span of 7 years, I lost 20 million. That was a lot of money to lose, having worked a long time to amass that and a bit more. It's okay. I worked and we came back, and my wife, as Marlon can attest, he's been in my home. We live a fairly decent life, and we're comfortable, and we're doing okay, and we're retired.
There you go.
Theoretically retired. I mean, she's retired. I'm still working 12, 14 hours a day.
I know you're right.
That's all I know.
You give speeches. You founded a new business overseas. So, like you say, keep moving. Keep moving. Don't let your mind settle. I came into this world of media, podcasting, meeting people through the back door. I used to be a fire captain in Singapore, and I learned that the word crisis in Mandarin Chinese has two characters. One part is danger, the other part is opportunity. The two words are wei chi. The word crisis in Mandarin Chinese has two characters. One part is danger, the other part is opportunity. Wei is danger, chi is opportunity. So, what I'm hearing from both of you gentlemen is yes, everything might seem very, very scary now, but let's hold ourselves together and look carefully through the dust cloud, through the dust storm. There's something brilliant, something beautiful that we can harness out of this. On that note, dear, could you tell, say about 3 months ago, that with the coming of tariffs, we're going to go through this? Or is this too new? And the reason I ask that is because it's going to have an impact on small businesses. Could you tell that this tariff thing was going to really be a thing, or was just maybe a negotiation tactic?
Well, first of all, forgive me, but I'm hard of hearing. So what I think you said is, could I tell 3 months ago that
Yes,
the economy is
tariffs.
going to do what it's
Yes,
doing, right?
yes.
Well, given the administration and given the world circumstances that I'm aware of, it's always subject to change. Big change can happen. The issue is not so much that it's going to change; it's the ability to adapt to the change,
Mhm,
right? And
mhm,
so, how do you adapt to the change? Our topic is AI here, and AI can help with that. It
mhm,
cannot predict, it cannot do any of that kind of stuff, but it can help you understand how to take advantage of a particular circumstance.
mm,
Now, what I find key with AI is that, and most of the reason people have a challenge with AI is they don't know what questions to ask. But isn't this true in life? You talk to people, Marlon. We've had conversations about this. We talk with people, and they just don't ask the right questions,
absolutely true.
right? So if you
Absolutely.
don't ask the right questions, you're certainly not going to get the right
That
answers,
answers.
and you're probably going to get an answer that'll be confusing.
Thank you.
So it's with AI, it's more the ability to ask the right questions.
Mm, mm,
Recognize that when you get an answer back, that might be a lead to another way to ask another question and
mhm,
to be able to do that. But most people that I know of that use AI right now are going, well, what about this? And can I analyze this? And can I do this? And of course you can, and they treat it like a foreign entity, and it's not.
mm,
There's a number of things that people should know about using AI that I don't think they understand. And we touched on this pre-show, and I just want to mention this right now. First of all, AI is not 100% accurate.
yes.
Not ever think that the information you get is 100% accurate,
Okay, yes.
and it'll give you a reference, and that reference may be wrong. So you need to check it out. If
Yeah.
it's critical detail, you need to check it out. If you're asking about a regulation or a law or something, you need to make sure that you read that law and
Mm,
crazy and just accept what AI says. You can't do that. That's just not smart.
thank you. Thank you. So
So,
Marlon, oh, okay, finish your thought. I thought you were
so
done.
having said that, the key that I want to give to everyone for AI is that you treat it like you would treat Gideon, Marlon, or me. You treat it as a sentient being, and that's really hard for people to understand.
Thank you.
My AI is called Buddy, and I call Buddy and I say, "Hey, Buddy, I got a challenge. What do you think of this?" And I ask opinions, and I ask for this, and I ask for that, and what do you think about this? I don't just say, "Give me this and give me that and do this and do
Mm.
that," and then exit. I
Hmm.
I treat AI as though it's a person. Now,
Yeah.
is that effective? Well, I can just give you the results of when I started versus now. When I started, it was awkward and it was terrible and it was a poor result. And
Yes.
today, man, I get answers that I'm quite certain I would never got.
Impressive.
Yeah, so you need to embrace it in that way, and that's a good part of the problem that we're having is that people don't understand how to embrace it.
Yes. Hmm. Very interesting. Think about it this way. Most of us go through school system. They don't teach us how to ask good questions. They teach us how to maybe memorize, how to recall information, but yet good questions, like you say, can help us live better lives. You can ask the right question to your boss, to your spouse, and it can change everything.
Mm.
With AI, Marlon, some people are talking about prompt engineering. Is this something that we should see in our school systems now coming up? How do we master prompt engineering? For those of us who are out of school, we like to learn, but I don't necessarily want to go take on more student debts to learn about prompt engineering. What are your thoughts on that, Marlon?
Are you sure you want my answer on this? You know,
Yes, sir.
I consider myself an agent of change, you know, an agent of disruption. So my point of view is this: if the educational institution that you're attending is
Yeah.
not teaching you how to use it, leave it, drop it. I don't care how many credits you have. I don't care if it's necessary. If it's not providing you with real world value, drop it. You know what? You'll make up those losses, you know, and in the future, because this is necessity. And so it goes back down to communication, really. I have this friend who I met back in my corporate world when I was doing marketing for a mortgage company, and his name is Rene Rodriguez, and he wrote this book called Amplify Your Influence. And I always took his pages to heart, because it really comes down to how do you use your influence when you're speaking with, like DR said, you're speaking to a person, right? That's what you should consider your AI as. And if you don't know how to speak to a person, well, then you have a bigger problem, right? And you need to address that. But when it comes to prompting questions, it fundamentally goes down to this: how do you frame your conversation? How do you frame the question? If you don't even know how to frame the question, then
Yes.
of course you're going to go down the wrong rabbit hole, right? I have a system in place to where when I help my clients, they all have their specific folder or section within the memory bank of ChatGPT. So if I say, hey, you know, just a question here for, you know, X clients, they're in the real estate industry. Let's frame everything correctly. You already know how to act when I ask a question about this particular client based on the information that you have on them and their file. How would you resolve the solution, right? Because it's going to be a different than if I asked it, hey, I also have a client that's in healthcare. How would you help their marketing? Two totally different industries. The framework is different. So that's when it comes to being able to, you know, a good prompter is really just a good question asker and someone that knows how to have a good conversation.
Yes.
I have seen multiple, you know, things out in the market when it comes to, you know, prompt gurus, templates for how to be a good prompter, and all that is great, but that can't solve the solution. I mean, I guess theoretically you can just buy a whole bunch of prompt templates, but do you really want to do that? Wouldn't it just be easier to be a better communicator and learn how to apply that to
Right.
AI?
Exactly. Yeah,
Yes.
those people are pandering to those people who just don't think.
Exactly.
Where do you? They
Yeah.
just do not think. And if
Yes.
you don't want to think, okay, buy a template and put it in there and see what you get.
Yep. Yep. It's
I learned,
like
I learned how to program an IBM 360. Do you know what that is? That's a room-long computer with no memory. And I was taught that in the Air Force. And the one thing that my instructor said right off the bat was, listen, if you put garbage in, meaning you
get
don't
garbage out.
correctly, you're going to get garbage out.
Garbage out. Yep. Yep.
That stayed with me my whole life. It's the same thing with questions, right, Marlon? You put a garbage question in, you're going to get a garbage question out. If that
Absolutely.
fully formed,
Absolutely.
you're not going to get a fully formed answer back. That's just the way it is, and it's
Yes.
that way between human communication. If I
Yep.
ask Marlon a question right now about our TinyTales business, which he's involved in as well, and I leave off some details about, well, I'm thinking about going here or going there or whatever, and I just give him a straightforward question, and he goes, well, and then he has to think about it because he's trying to think, where's DR going with this? But if I say, I'm talking about this, and we expect to do this, and we're going here with this, and we're going to do this and do this. Now he's got the information to give me a right answer. Why would AI be any different? Correct, Marlon?
Yes.
More than spot on, you know, and I think we did a very simple exercise. I was in a training room with some pretty bright minds, and the exercise was simple. We gave it some very basic information about a property, and we said, without adding any personalization. Just go down the rabbit hole and ask it to create flyers and documents and spec sheets and scripts. And what happened? It was a mess. Why? Because again, there wasn't any framework put in. It started, not only did it make mistakes, it started adding assumptions. And when it assumes, it added information about the property that didn't even exist on it, because it's just trying to fulfill your demands without compliance in mind. That's why I always tell anyone that I speak to that wants to implement AI, especially if you're in a highly regulated industry, AI's job is not to be your compliance expert. That's on you. This is your business at the end of the day. Who are you going to blame if you get sued? Oh, you got to sue ChatGPT. They were the ones behind it. You're the ones pressing the button. It's the ones pressing the button that get the blame.
Yes, sir. Think about it this way. You don't have social skills. You don't have to date a woman, sit down, buy her coffee, ask some questions, get to know her. You go to a matchmaker. The matchmaker gets your wife. You go home, can't live with the wife. Then you turn around and sue the matchmaker. Whose fault is it? Because you did not develop your social skills as far as that particular one is concerned. And maybe you made some assumptions. And that's exactly what I think DR was talking about. Garbage in, garbage out. Giggle. I also happen to have learned that, even though I wasn't very, very sophisticated in programming. But this is very, very interesting, because I know there are small businesses out there that can leverage AI.
Oh, yeah.
Some of them can use bot. Some of them can use maybe there's so many other tools that they can leverage. But which tools do you think that small businesses, maybe in real estate, maybe in insurance services, financial services, people who are roofers, people who are, just cleaners, what some of these tools that they can leverage? You want to talk about some of those, Marlon, and then I'll go back to DR on something very, very peculiar.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a mastermind hosted by a gentleman who's actually a neighbor of mine. It happened in the same property here. And it was in regards to how to use AI practically. And basically, there was a room of other AI experts, all of varying levels of expertise. And we really put our heads together and we said, we want to develop something that would normally take someone that doesn't know much about AI, maybe a couple weeks to implement. And we had like 4 hours max. And here are the prompts. Here's the solution. Here's the industry. Here's the customer that you're going to help. And we're like, okay, let's put our brains together. And so one of the things that we did was we developed a voice AI. And so we had to apply the use for it. And so my group, we had some really bright minds. And we decided that the use case for it would be someone that needed a new roof. And so we had to develop an AI.
What a coincidence. I was mentioning roof without even knowing that you guys were talking about roofers. Yeah, okay. This is interesting. Okay? They say great minds think alike. Okay, I like to think I'm a great mind. All right. I'm being goofy here. Go ahead.
Yes. No, you're listen, this is spot on. So the simple question is, okay, when someone talks to an AI, let's say that the worst use case you see is usually like at the bank. And it's like they have the most money, but it's the stupidest AI, right? Enter your name, enter your social. And it doesn't have a conversation with you. It's just horrible pre-recorded messages. So we had to add a couple things. The first thing we did is we wanted to de-escalate people's anger, right? Because when you expect to speak to someone and you're speaking to an AI, what happens? Your adrenaline goes up. You're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a stressful experience. So one of the things that we did to break it down was, hey, be a little bit more colloquial, but not too casual either. Say natural inflections. I'm not sure. Let me get back to you on that. Things that are in natural speech. That's number one. Let's not make it sound like a robot. Number two is let's really ask questions, right? So we delved into this space and we said, okay, what are the most common questions that are asked when someone is roofing or getting their roof done and they're asking a real expert? So we broke down some potential transcripts that using ChatGPT, right? What are some common transcripts that happen in the conversation? How long is the conversation? The other thing we had to do is we had to address pain points. We had to address upselling. All of these things that you think, okay, this would probably take a very, well human to do. And there will definitely be some onboarding and some training and some learning curve. And we managed to do all this within a few hours. And afterwards, when we debuted the test, when we were testing it along, it did so many things. Anything from, let me tell you this interesting use case. So the question was, hey, how can I help you? Hey, I want to fix my roof. Okay, how big is your roof? I'm not sure. Well, can you send me your address? And so the moment that our voice AI had the address, it searched it using Google Maps, and using Google Maps, latitude and longitude, it was able to give an estimate of the size of the roof without them having any idea. So the customer didn't have to figure out. The math was already done. And because of that and some other supplementary questions, it was able to come up with a quote all on its own. So again, when you're thinking of use cases, this is a powerful use case. But then people go back to me and say, well, I mean, I don't want to get rid of my customer service because that's unethical. I don't want to get rid of my sales team because that's unethical. You're not getting rid of them. For every lead that is generated by this, it simply means that you need to fine tune your sales force to be closers, really secure the deal, or retention,
Yes,
right?
sir.
Everyone that is currently, fulfilling that similar role that I talked about with the AI, maybe being an appointment setter or a front desk person, now their roles are still there, but they're more auditing, compliance, looking at those transcripts, because I failed to mention, but all of that conversation log is being recorded, transcribed, put into a spreadsheet for the business owner to see and review. So now you assign that task to your AI and to your customer service person and say, hey, listen, I just want to make sure that our AI is behaving in the best way possible. And if it's not, please log that so that we can adjust that. And if there is an issue, and if someone, of course, insists, hey, I don't want to speak to someone, then you're there as the fail-safe. But your role is now going to be more hands-on, focused on the customers that you want to deal with. I mean, how many times have you gone to, let's say, a fast food place or something like that, and you want to be as efficient as possible, and you want to place your order, but you can't because that person at the front is being bombarded with phone calls.
Exactly.
What if that was a problem? Then you could focus on that in-person interaction that just can't be duplicated, and you can focus on doubling down on sales in person.
Yep. Look at that.
Yep. Good point.
There are large language models. You mentioned this in our warm-up. You talk about the area where we're more concerned about for small businesses is the large language models. And I know you did programming years ago. You've owned businesses in many parts of the world. Talk to us about maybe one or two areas where you see large language models becoming significant for people who are, let's say, they've been out of school for much, much longer, and they did not spend any time reading. And now they suddenly feel like they're in a vortex, like, oh my God, this thing is gonna, it's making my life unbearable. I don't know, what should I do? What are some of those areas where they can start to use large language models to adapt, to grow, and survive these moments of turbulence?
Well, first they have to get over their panic, obviously. Panic attack's not going to help them get through anything. But once they get past that, you just have to sit down calmly and say to myself, can I get help from someone to do something? Are you willing to ask for help? Now, if you're willing to ask for help, then what kind of help do you need? So they're going to have to break it down and say, okay, my business is being threatened. I have too many competitors, or the market has gone down and I don't know how to overcome that. Whatever it is, let's pick one of those things. I have too many competitors. So I would ask the Chat GPT, I would say, in my area of whatever, I feel like there's too many competitors within my geographical area. Is there a way around that? Is there something that would make me stand out above my competitors? That's the first question. ChatGPT comes back and says, well, tell me some unique things about your business. So you start listing unique things about your business. Now you've got an exchange of communication. See how that works? That's no different than what we're talking about right now.
There you
So
go.
you're listening those things. Then ChatGPT comes back and says, well, do all your competitors have all of these things? I hadn't thought about that. Okay, yeah. I don't know. And now you've got another exchange, right? And now you've got some work to do, and then you put it back into ChatGPT. Okay, upon research, I found out that all my competitors have these, but none of them have this. Great. That would be their ChatGPT's response. And then your response, if you're smart, would be, how can I leverage those things to bring my business to the forefront?
Yes.
It's an exchange.
Yes.
If Marlon was my consultant and he came to me in a business and he would be asking the same questions, would you not, Marlon?
Yeah.
Exactly. An audit.
Questions.
An audit. There you go.
And so
Wow.
you're asking those questions, and you better be prepared to answer those questions. The problem is that people approach AI with the idea that it's got all the answers, and when they ask a question, it's the wrong question. They go, well, what the hell use is this? This is not working. I don't understand. And it's just crazy to expect anything.
Yeah.
If I ask you or Marlon a question about my business and I don't properly frame it,
Thank you.
how could I possibly get the right answer?
Thank you.
You simply cannot.
Thank
What
you.
I find fascinating is the amount of uses that I find for AI as I
Unbelievable.
every day. Marlon
Unbelievable.
talked about some of the things that he does with his ChatGPT. Why don't you talk about, for your businesses, just some simple
Absolutely.
things you do
Thank you.
that make your business so much better because you've got that AI interaction?
Yes, that would be so helpful, Marlon. Maybe name 1, 2, 3, 4, not more than 5 things that you do to, move your marketing agency forward, so that other small business people can start to relate. Say, maybe I can do that, or maybe I can call Marlon. Maybe I can call DR, or certainly not me, because I'm learning, I'm enjoying it, I'm using it, but I'm still nowhere at a point where I'm willing to teach anyone else.
I think the best analogy is to think of it like a physician, right? No matter what industry you're in, you all need to visit the physician every now and then. But
Yes.
if you don't give the full details, everything's just going to be misdiagnosed, and you're probably just going to be given some painkillers, and it's not going to address the root issue. So when it comes
Painkillers,
to
not
me
good.
and my agency, there's so many different routes that you can go. Marketing is such a broad field, right? And but if I could, just kind of broadify just for this example, right? You imagine something like an e-commerce company, and you may have been misled in thinking that, hey, the moment I launch something on Amazon, it's going to be profitable, right? Because Amazon is so profitable. Well, that couldn't be further from the truth if you don't have the right structure. So a great use case for that is to actually give ChatGPT the issues. What do I mean by that? Share your balance sheet, share your profit and loss statements, share your customer churn rate, share your different profit margin, right? What profits are you making? What's your margins? When you share that type of data to ChatGPT, then it could really give you some substantial advice. It could say something like, hey, your offer is great, but here's how it could be better. Okay, hold on a second, ChatGPT. I don't trust you, right? Can you give me some real world examples? Absolutely. Here's a business in this region that has a similar structure based on the information you've given me. They've had great success with this. Okay, great, but I target more mid-market, not low-hanging fruit. How can you adjust that to be more towards mid-market? Fantastic. Let me help you adjust your structure here. Anything from if you're a business that works with lots of vendors and contractors, hey, you know what? I think you can push for a bigger cut on your end because you're the agency and you're facilitating all of this. Or you know what? Your offer isn't competitive enough. So maybe that's why you're not finding good talent to help you run your business. These are all things that, as a business owner, everyone considers, right? Oh man, I can't find good talent. What's going on? Well, maybe it's because you're not disclosing the salary ranges, right? Simple things that, I think someone would overlook, especially if they have put their head down for so long. They don't recognize the trends that are going on. But ChatGPT's job is to give information from the database. So it has very current information. And so I think it's just such a great tool for someone to be informed. And again, if you have an issue with your business, you have to disclose the full depths of that issue in order to get a good solution. Otherwise, you're going to get something superficial. And I think that's where people, they get turned off by ChatGPT. They ask superficial questions and expect some amazing
Insightful
experience. Yeah, they're not going to get that.
Thank you. I mean, there's a time for superficial questions,
Of course.
for basic research, and there's a time for insightful research. Guess what? I was writing a proposal recently to a client somewhere in Houston, and I wasn't sure what to charge them. What I was going to put in my compensation was going to be lower, believe me. But when I went to chat, I said, chat, hey, if I'm consulting for this company, I'm training the executives on business storytelling, I'm doing X, Y, Z, what would be a reasonable amount? Then boom, it gave me numbers. It said, it's this range, between this range and this range should be reasonable. I was like grateful because I would have been losing more than 4, 5K. Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
So, and I sent in that submission. Guess what kind of answer I got? Yes, sir. Let's go forward. So I am grateful to ChatGPT. Otherwise, I would have been easily losing 4, 5K. That's significant.
Okay. Well,
and so that's a good example of it was not a deep question, but was a specific question that brought enough depth, and it gave me a specific answer that has actually helped me to have a positive balance sheet going forward.
all right. Well, let's take it back to real world versus AI. One of the things that people ask me all the time, because I've been around the world so many times, they said, well, how many languages do you speak? And I always tell them I speak 3. I speak American, English, and the bottom line. What? What's the bottom?
What's the bottom line?
I don't even understand what that is. And it's a language, right? So what I understand is how to use the bottom line. Now, people don't understand still what that means. And I've talked to guys who've run major corporations, and I talk about that, and they go, look, all I know is the bottom right-hand corner is where the profit's at. That's it. Well, that's fine, but what if the profits aren't there? What do you do then? How do you look for where the errors are? How do you try and look where the voids are? Now, today with ChatGPT, as Marlon suggested, you could take that whole balance sheet and spreadsheet for your cash and send that through ChatGPT and say, what irregularities do you see in that sheet?
Oh, look at that.
You're going to come back and say, well, purchasing department is now spending 23% more than it spent last month and 23% more than they spent the previous month. What? How did that happen? You don't know, but now you know where to go. You can go to the purchasing department and say, what's going on in here, guys?
Yes.
Why are your expenditures so much higher?
Yep.
Show me what you're doing.
Fired.
Yep. You're fired. Anything over 10% more, you're fired. Do a Trump number on them.
I'm telling you.
But you can do
Oh
that.
my goodness.
I've seen that. Now, my wife was a controller for Cadillac for 35 years, and she was always rated in the top 10 spot of all the dealerships as a controller. She's very good at what she does, but one of her strengths is the fact that she can look at that whole balance sheet and look at the bottom line and go, there's a problem here. There's a department that's not doing well. And so she starts researching, going through that, and it's days worth of work and all this kind of stuff. You're analyzing every account. You run that through ChatGPT, and in about 2.2 nanoseconds, it comes back and it says, your problem is in this department, and this department, and here's what they're doing wrong. Well, I don't know. Was that a help to your business? I think so. So it's the same way in our business. Now, our TinyTales Land that we have is pretty small business. And we do some publishing. We have a website, and we now have a line of school books that we produce for international consumption, national and international consumption.
I'm a fan of your work. I'm a fan of TinyTales. And
so as we look at what we're doing, the first question we had is, how can we make it for less? So ChatGPT looked at all the different ways that we could produce that and said, Why don't you make this the only hardcover book and make everything else an EPUB? Okay, well, that changes the cost dramatically. So
Wow.
now we've gone from a set of books that if you normally bought a set of books like this for school would be in the $100 range, $7,500 range. We offer it for $15 per student. That's dramatic. Well, we wouldn't have been able to do that if we hadn't put that analysis into ChatGPT and looked at all the different ways that we could publish the same thing. See, that's a simple thing. And you can do that in your business. I don't care what business is, whether you're doing pipe forming, you're doing exhaust repair, or you're doing engine repair, or you've got a little print shop, you've got a marketing agency, as Marlon does. You sit down and you say, look, these are the expenses that I have. These are the things that I'm doing. Compare that to last year's expenses, compare it to market averages, and now you're going to get some numbers back that you can analyze yourself. You can look at it and go, wait, why am I so far out of the norm? Now you got another series of questions to add ChatGPT. Do I do this? Am I doing this or doing this? Should I add this? Should I take away this? All those questions, all of those things can be asked of ChatGPT, but you have to ask intelligent questions. You just go in and say, what would be a better business than what I'm doing right now? Are you kidding me? Nobody's going to answer that question. Nobody. In today's market, what would you say? What would you say? What's a better market? I don't know. Maybe robbing banks. It's just a stupid question. And so stupid is, as Forrest Gump said, stupid is as stupid does. It's just the way it is. ChatGPT, AI in general, will give your business a huge leg up if you ask it the right questions and you ask it about things that are actually pertinent to your business.
Specific.
Specific. And that's what Marlon was saying. The specifics that he asks about his business and the data that he's willing to share, my gosh, reminds me of my father. My father said, we don't share our business with anybody. Yeah, that cost me my scholarship to college. That was a great idea. Anyway, you go to ChatGPT and you give it this information, and now it's got information it can chew on. And it compared to national averages, international averages, averages in your neighborhood, averages in your state. I mean, there's all kinds of data out there. Give you an idea. Recently, I started this business in the Philippines. So I've been doing a lot of research on Philippine people. And I wanted to know where they are and how many they are and so on and so forth. Well, how do you track that down? Just like how many people from Cameroon are there in various places? Well, here in Las Vegas, we have 200,000 plus Filipinos. Okay. In 2019, we only had 156,000. Does that represent a growth pattern to you? It does to me.
Absolutely.
And I talked to several of them, and they said, and they're coming more all the time. And of course they are, because they're focused in health. They're focused in the service industry, primarily in the hospitality industry. So we're a mega attraction for them, right? So what other cities are there? So I asked those questions. Do you know that there's only 5 cities in America that have a population greater than 150,000 Filipinos?
Wow.
5. How about that for being specific?
Exactly.
Now, I could have sat and guessed that and said, well, so-and-so's a great place. It's nice. I like it. So let's go there. Well, that'd be a wrong mistake. And you spend a lot of money in there trying to market to that market. Miss big time.
And
so costly. That kind of reach, that kind of expansive knowledge about what you're doing specifically, it makes a big difference for your business. And I don't care whether it's a business that does 500,000 a year or it does $7 million a year. You need this opportunity with AI.
And this is something that wasn't available 5-10 years ago. That's why it's such a big deal for small businesses, because how much time would it have taken you to be able to assess the communities or the population of that target market if you had to do it by yourself?
Exactly.
First, you have to go to the library, go to a consultant, go to the Chamber of Commerce. It would have taken you a whole lot of time. But now, with a few good questions, you can get that information at your fingertips. Now, Marlon, let's talk about, besides ChatGPT, which other AI tools or AI large language models are you seeing that are breaking through and that are useful and applicable for small businesses?
I think the answer is just all of the above. I mean, for every need and every issue, there are certain, AI platforms that will be a little bit more efficient. I was talking with one of my fellow AI experts, and he says that Claude is the go-to for people that want to do high-level development because its coding capabilities are.
I think you're muted. You
Your,
may be muted.
your sound went out, Marlon.
Yeah,
One
okay.
one second. Yes. Spam caller went through. Okay, we're back on. See, that's the failure of something doesn't have a good spam filter. But regardless, the issue is that if you have something that's a specific need, you have to research what AI is more compatible with that.
Okay, okay.
But I think for the baseline, ChatGPT is a very great starting point for everyone. It's the industry leader for a reason. I think the other things to consider when you're debating on what other AIs to use is really the ethics behind it. And I know that that's not a fun conversation that people like to talk about. We always love to talk about the ingenuity behind the AI. But where does it come from? What are the intentions of the developers? What information are they feeding it? Because really it's being fed information. When it comes to, let's say, something like DeepSeek, which was a newer AI model that was developed, and it's known to be developed by China. And so nothing wrong with that. But however, it makes you question if certain issues can be answered correctly, ethically. For example, if you were to ask it in regards of, what is your political stance in regards to this, it trips up when you ask those kind of sensitive questions. And I think certain AIs will answer things in vastly different perspectives. But however, I think when you're going towards a reasoning that is supposed to be more, I would say, balanced, based on research that I've seen, ChatGPT tends to give you a more balanced, neutral standpoint, whereas you may not get the same response from other AIs. So again, other considerations besides just its knowledge capabilities are also what's its framework, what is it willing to answer objectively, and where does it kind of veer a little bit based on the creator's framework. So things to consider.
Okay.
If you use this like common sense, everybody has a set of knowledge that they've acquired over the years, however many years that is. So if you came to me and said, I want to talk about rocket science, be a problem, be a real problem. However, I could direct you to my friend Gary Friedman, who is a rocket scientist.
There you go.
He could talk to you about that all day long, and you'd have a wonderful discussion with him. Well, within the ChatGPT family, there's a number of AI functions that our company uses, for example. We create magnificent graphics using ChatGPT, and we're known for that. And we take those graphics and we put it into a program that does nothing but coloring book pages. Now, why is that important? Well, we would take this graphic, it would mimic the page that we've already created, except there's a lot less detail. So obviously it can be colored by a child. We still put the same story underneath it. And now the teacher can use that as homework and send that home with a third grader. And the parents get involved in the education and it comes back. Now, that was an idea that came from ChatGPT, from the one that I use, and it sent me to another ChatGPT program that just focuses on coloring book pages. That's all.
Wow.
Now, the next thing we're doing is we're doing a whole series of books kicking off in April on English as a second language. And in every country, it's a problem.
Maybe I need some of that.
So let's just take the Philippines because it's right in my face at the moment. In the Philippines, the national standard is that you have to learn two languages. One is English, one is Tagalog. Okay, those are the two languages. There's actually 188 languages in the Philippines. Every little island has their own little language. So that's a huge problem for kids. So you start talking to third grade kids, and what do they know? Well, they know a little bit of English, they know a little bit of Tagalog, and they mesh it all together, combined with what their area speaks, and you've got some kind of mishmash Creole that who knows what that is, right? Now, then I found out that a friend of mine who married a Filipino, he's English, and he says, I want to learn Filipino. Oh, another issue, right? Same kind of deal. So we can use that both ways. So I explained this to ChatGPT, and we talked about it in depth about how to put a program together. So we put a program together, and then I went to a nationally, in fact, internationally recognized expert, Bryce Hedstrom, about language acquisition. And I said, this is the model I've come up with. What do you think? He said, not bad. How long you been doing this? Well, curiously enough, today is 1 year. 1 year our company's been in business. So
you mean TinyTales, or the company is different from TinyTales?
TinyTales been in business 1 year as of today.
Amazing.
So we asked him, we said, what changes should we make? Now, we're not trying to provide a whole course. We're trying to get kids interested in this. And we're trying to get teachers interested in this. And he came back and he said, wow, this is pretty amazing, actually, really amazing. So then I tried it in other languages. I tried it in German. I tried it in Spanish. And with using AI, I'm capable of doing all languages. Now, 100 languages covers 88% of the world. So I use this to create another model. And then from there, I use it to create another model. But then I had an idea. What about research on language acquisition and how well it's received and how difficult it is and so forth? I went to another program within ChatGPT that is all about research and statistics. That's all it deals with.
Wow.
Went into that, and oh man, I was in there like 3 or 4 hours. It's like I'd fallen down a rabbit hole. There was so much information that came at me. And when I finished reading all that, I couldn't believe how much knowledge I gained just in that short period of time. Well, regardless of what you're using AI for, there is specifics that you can do with AI, and they're easy to find out. They're absolutely easy to find out. OpenAI, who is the owner of ChatGPT, has put this out there so that there's like, I'm going to say at least 15 different models. I saw a deal the other day where you can customize OpenAI's platform for your own specific needs.
Yes, I have a friend who's done that.
Yeah. So I'm anxious to try that. I'm going to see how that works out. I can do one for each of the businesses and see what happens. But yeah, I don't see a way where today's business person, you correct me if I'm wrong, Marlon. I mean, you're pretty savvy. I really appreciate what you know. I don't see a way today where a business person can't benefit from using AI.
Thank you.
Do you?
And I think it ultimately comes down to your willingness, right? In the same way that if someone had a wealth of expertise, came up to a moderately successful person and said, hey, listen, I want to help you out. Here's my, my resume, my experience, my CV. Here's how I can help, and if that person just turns them down and says, you know what, that's not for me, that's a missed opportunity. The same way for ChatGPT, right?
Exactly.
It's clear as day that this is the way that industries are moving. This is the way the world is moving. And against all odds, I guess someone could still say no, but at what cost, right? At the cost of your business, your reputation, at the cost of, countless other people that you employ. I mean, I get it. sometimes it's cool to be against the grain and to try to go against this, but this is not the case. This is something that's here to stay. It's almost as if someone were to say, hey, you know what? That new car thing, I don't like it. I prefer a nice horse and wagon. Okay, you keep at it there. Check in with me in a couple of years, and we'll see. Who's right. There's a great
Yeah.
novelty in riding a horse, but I don't think we would be able to function in an international economy with a horse.
With a horse or a yak, for that matter. I love yaks, or an elk. I don't mind riding an elk, but how far can it go?
Let me give you a real world experience. I've been around long enough. I participated in privacy discussions for the internet. So I've been here a while. Been a lot of technology. And computers came out, PCs came out in 1981. I immediately embraced them. I thought, this is great, man. I went from that great big thing I was using down to this. This is great. So I started using them, and guys all around me, my age, and I was in 1981, I don't know what it was in my 40s. And they said, why would I use a computer? Well, because, and I'd list these things and they go, well, I have a secretary, which we had back in those days, or a personal assistant to do this. And I can get this done by so-and-so, and I can do this, and I can do that. Really, there's going to come a time when you need this. Now, I'm 78, and I see my peers out there, and I talk to them about computers, and they go, shit, I don't, excuse my French, I don't even know how to turn the damn thing on. What? You don't understand. I don't do email. You want to talk to me? Call me. What about texting? You do any texting? Nope. No, I don't want to. My thumbs don't work. I don't want to text. I don't like to text either. But you can. There's a little thing you can use. You push a button and you can talk.
Yep. Wow.
It's just all these things that people just rebel against. I don't want to do that. I like bell bottoms. I don't want to wear straight pants. Okay. Be a bell bottoms person. If that's a lot of people died from that, but hey, that's another story.
Oh my goodness.
If you be acceptive of technology, then you are going to fall behind. So don't come back to any of us 10 years from now and say, well, I can't do that. Well, wait a minute. When AI came out, did you make an attempt to learn? Did you make an attempt to use it? Well, I'm sorry, excuses don't work here. And people are going to say it's going to take my job. It's going to take your job because you don't want to expand your knowledge.
Yes.
It's that simple.
Yeah. Where is Eastman Kodak?
Yeah.
Where's Kodak? I mean, Marlon, I'm sure you saw Kodak cameras, right? They were all there. They were buying film. When was the last time anybody used film? I bet they were the kind of people that said, this digital thing, I'm not part of that. My fingers can do digital. Now they're out of business completely. I know we have to start wrapping up here. And but there's still one question that if I don't ask, my wife's going to kill me. I would like DR to chime in and Marlon to chime in on this. She would likely ask me, why didn't you ask this brilliant man to talk about if you have an insurance agency today, like you once had some years ago, DR, and you wanted to use ChatGPT to become a top broker? What are 3 things you could do?
Well, first thing, we didn't have an agency. It was an insurance company.
And you had the whole big thing, not just
our clients were other insurance companies and agencies.
Okay.
So what would I have done with it? Oh my gosh. We took that company to profitability in 15 months. And in 20 months, we surpassed the $1 billion mark. And we sold it. The company's been sold 10 times since then. What could I have done with AI? Oh my gosh. First of all, I could have more focused my marketing. We had 17 people out marketing. And maybe I didn't need 17. Maybe 12 would have done it if I'd been in a target-rich area. And I could have identified that area easier with ChatGPT, without a doubt. So I could have saved a lot of time and a lot of money in my cost of developing it. We spent almost 4 months, not quite 4 months, designing the software, which was proprietary, that we used. Almost 4 months. Then we spent 3 months. This is out of that first 15 when we became profitable. Then we spent 3 months trying to actually implement that software. And the first company that I hired to do that software failed miserably. 6 weeks in, I fired everyone and hired my own people, and we started off, and we still made the development on time and under budget. But we could have done so much more if we'd had AI, particularly in the development, because we could have asked questions. Well, when we do this, would it lead to this or this? What about this possibility or that possibility? What's the voids? What's the unintended consequence of doing this and the intended consequence? And that's most people don't even take into consideration.
Yes.
So you want to know the voids, you want to know the unintended consequences, the intended consequences, and using AI, I could have figured those things out earlier and easier. So we tied up 6 people trying to develop the software, just coming up with what it's the scope of what it's supposed to do. And then in the development, we had 12 people that were actually trying to write the code. And then when I fired everybody and had my own, I had 8 people that were actually building the software. Now, I could have saved so much time. Can you imagine the amount of time, money, resources I could have saved?
Yes.
AI, and they could have saved with AI? Oh my gosh, it's just astronomical. Would people have lost their jobs? I'm going to say yes, because they're the same people who should probably lose them today. They're not keeping up with technology. They're not doing what they should do in their field anyway. They're the same people that say, I don't need to learn that. I already got this. Most people, and people are going to really hate this statement, but most people work at their jobs for a full year, and in the second year, they repeat it. And the third year, they repeat the first year, and so on and so forth. Pretty soon they got 15 years in, and it's just the first year repeated 15 times. And that's a shame. And that's because people don't want to grow. It takes work to grow. When you go to college, you don't just get to sit there and hopefully some stuff just falls on you.
No way.
You have to work. If you go into life and you skip college altogether, and I didn't go to college until I was 25. I'd already had several businesses by that time. And if you just sit there and expect things to come to you, it's not going to happen.
Never.
So it's a question of knowledge and what people want to do. And you can't help that. So there's always going to be those people who say, well, it's going to take my job. Well, it probably will, because you're not willing to learn anything. So do I feel sorry for them? You know, I feel sorry for anybody who doesn't want to learn.
What will be your take, Marlon, on that same question? Should I rephrase it?
Yeah, I think the issues that you're going to encounter if you're an unproductive person are the same issues that you would encounter, 50 years ago, right? I mean, how many times do you go into an industry that, for better or worse is very dated? You look at the medical industry and they're still dealing with paper. They're still managing all this kind of stuff, all under the guise of, but HIPAA compliance. You can train your AI to do that, right? It's a willingness to really bring yourself down in the industry, and that's not just at the employee level, that's at the whole industry level, when you're willing to drag everything down for the sake of you not wanting to learn. So I don't want to just put everything on the downline employees, but still, when you talk about innovation and you talk about, even going back, getting out of the slump, right? There's people that are fed up with, wages not going up and things of that nature. But what really it comes down to is not willing to improve. If you know that your situation right now, as not a business owner, just anyone, if your situation is to where you don't make ends meet and you refuse to educate yourself, you refuse to find better methods to improve, well, I'm sorry, it's no one else's fault. I mean, you can cry, you can say, hey, you know what, it's AI taking my job, the government's not helping me. It's none of those things. It's really just your unwillingness to learn. That's what it comes down to.
Thank you. And Bill Gates, not Bill Gates, I think Jeff Bezos says your number one competitor is not someone else. It is your unwillingness. It is on your unwillingness to learn. And I really, really agree with him on that. Like it's not a competition. No, it's not a competition. It is our unwillingness to learn. So, gentlemen, I know we've hit the top of the hour, and I love to go on, but I have to respect your schedules very, very much and be grateful for your time. On your way out, if there's one word or two that you have for a business person who wants to future-proof their business with AI, what is that one word?
Knowledge.
Hey, don't sleep.
Sorry, say that again, Marlon.
Don't sleep.
DR says knowledge, and I didn't hear your word.
I said don't sleep. Wake
Oh,
up.
don't sleep. Oh, okay. Knowledge and don't sleep. Take that to the bank. If you're a business owner, wherever you're watching from, if you want to find Mr. DR Rawson, who is the promoter of TinyTales, founder of TinyTales, how can we find Mr. Rawson or TinyTales?
I'm all over the web. TinyTalesLand.com is out there. My credentials are out there. You can go to drrawson.com, which is my personal website. You can do that. But yeah, I'm available.
TinyTalesLand.com, drrawson.com. Thank you so much, sir. Mr. Medina, how can we find you? You may be God sent to someone. I mean, how do they know? How do they find you?
You know what? Very similar thing. I think me and DR were on the same boat. We were like, we have to get our domain names right away. So marlonmedina.com. You can find me there. That's my personal website. However, it will branch out into some of the ventures I'm involved in, and then we'll see how we can work together from there.
Gentlemen, I could not get a domain name for myself. Gideon Fomokwai. That would not fly. That would take the whole year for somebody to spell it. So I'm sorry, I could not get that. But I managed to get one. It's story-warrior.com. And it's been an absolute pleasure having you here, sharing your wisdom, sharing your knowledge. I believe you've helped me. You've helped someone. Thank you for shining the light. Keep taking that light to far, far, far away places and changing the world. One person at a time, one technology at a time. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Have a blessed day.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Bye.